Hi, I'm Cole D'Souza and you're listening to the WA School of Mines Alumni Podcast. Now imagine what it would be like if your dad fired you and chucked you out of work. That's what's happened between Noel and his dad, Graham Willy Wilshaw, both WA School of Mines graduates, and they've successfully reunited and run Wilshaw Engineering, an engineering consultancy to the worldwide mining and minerals processing industry. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having us.
Before we go any further, Willy, can I hear how you fired Noel?
I used to have offices at the back of Warmans, and I used to employ my family during their downtimes at school. And Noel used to turn up, but one day I caught him in there playing computer games, so that was the end of it. He was out the door straight away.
Yeah, got sent home. Had to explain to Mum what happened.
Let's go back a few decades. Willy, what was Kalgoorlie like when you started at the School of Mines in the 1960s?
I started at the School of Mines in 67, and I arrived in Cal, I think, in 56, so it was a bit of a Wild West town. But the School of Mines had just been expanded. I think in about 67 they built a new wing, and it was all nice and good and great, and the School of Mines was moving to bigger things.
Now, did you work and study at the same time?
Basically, when I started at the School of Mines, it was a 4-year course based on 2 years full-time. You worked for the last 2 years and studied part-time, and I was working at Kambalda. Western Mining was a good training ground in those days, and I started as a trades assistant in the workshop, which you had to do that for your first 2 years, and then you got a grounding in all engineering aspects. The nickel strikes of the late 60s, where the miners wanted a nickel bonus, dragged me into that, and I was being forced to join the AMWU. So the then Western Mining Management dragged me out of the workshops, put me in the engineering drawing office as a draftsman.
Was that something you wanted, or...?
That was something that was really good, yes. It gave you a good grounding in engineering, based on the fact that all design work for the whole mining and mineral processing section of the facility was done in-house. So we had some great engineers and some great draftsmen to learn from.
Yep, and obviously that's now transferred into what is Wilshaw Engineering, the skills you picked up there.
Basically, I transferred the Western Mining Kambalda drawing and engineering office to Belmont, and I operate it the same way as today.
In your career, what's been the biggest highlight?
Probably the biggest highlight was I started off as a TA, and I eventually ended up being the chief engineer at Kambalda, where I think we had 14 underground mines, a large processing plant, a power station, and so basically you were able to work your way from the workshop floor to the chief engineer's position. So that was really a highlight. Every day was a learning experience at Kambalda, because basically when I started, underground mining was rail mounted with electric locomotives and side tippers or Granby trucks. And then in about 1970, I was involved with the Ottajuan decline, where we put in the first decline. I think I draw the portal sets up, and we had pneumatic jumbos and I think a 10-tonne Wabco diesel truck with electric drive wheels. When you lost power, it hit the wall, so that was turfed out very quickly.
Why did you establish Wilshaw Engineering?
Probably by default. I was working for Western Mining as a chief engineer at Kwinana, and there was a review done, and as a cost-cutting exercise, engineers and drafting was seen to be an expense which could be got from the outside. So basically, I worked for Norseman Gold Mine. I built a mine at Ravensthorpe, but unfortunately I think they went broke, so I was left there with nothing to do, so I decided to start work for myself.
Do you maintain a connection with the WA School of Mines now?
I basically do via Noel, and I've also got School of Mines plates. Was a mate.
Was a mate. Noel, you graduated in mining engineering at WA School of Mines in 2002. How different was your experience compared with your dad's?
Well, probably similar. The way Willy described it at the School of Mines, when I remember it and still do, is very personable. You knew all your classmates. I graduated, I think, with a class group of less than 20.
Yep.
You knew all your lecturers. And that's probably the strength of School of Mines, and it's probably one of the reasons I actually managed to get through. I'd done a couple of years in Curtin here through WASM, and it was only when I moved to Kalgoorlie the switch flicked on for me and I realised this is what I want to do. And you had the people there to help you to get through, and moving to Kalgoorlie and having that School of Mines basis that we get there was fantastic. And it was just such a personable university to attend, where you weren't just a class of hundreds, you were a class of dozens.
And why did you choose a resources related course?
By accident. I originally wanted to do pharmacy, so I did a chemistry course in my first year because I didn't get the score to do pharmacy. And Willy sort of I was probably disillusioned, and he said, I'm going to Marvel Lock for a job, I think it was Sons of Gourley back then. Why don't you come and have a look? And he's chucked me with the metallurgist because I liked chemistry. So I got to sit in the mill for about 4 days. After about 4 minutes, I was bored out of my brain. And I remember just sitting in the office, and I kept watching these utes coming in and out. I didn't realise what it was at the time. I had no idea. But they were basically underground miners. The Barminco crew were coming in out of the hole. And I said to Willie, I said, what are those guys over there do? He said, oh, they're the miners. So that looks like a pretty good job. Like, they were covered in dirt. They were all, carrying on. And at the end of shift, and we were driving back to Perth, and I said, I want to become a miner. I want to pull out of uni and do that mining thing. And Willie said, why don't you go to WASM? I said, what's WASM? And I remember he said, you've never heard of WASM? I said, no. He goes, you're born in Kalgoorlie, grew up in Kambalda. I went to WASM, you never heard of it. I said, never heard of WASM. So he explained to me on the way home that don't become a miner. Why don't you go do engineering and be a mining engineer? So that's what it was. When I was 17, a field trip to Marvel Lot for some work experience and watching the underground miners come out was the switch. I think I toyed with geology for a while, and that soon got explained, don't do that, and probably for a good reason, shouldn't say it. But became a mining engineer.
What is your most memorable moment at WASM?
Probably finishing. I struggled a little bit. I don't think I gave it my 100% effort at times, and I think my parents were a little bit worried about me. I got a few choice letters, I think a few choice conversations with Willie and I about you need to finish this and pull your head out. And when I finally did it, it was a sense of achievement. You
went back into on a site-based role, climbed your way up to GM. At what point did you decide that you wanted to go back into the family business?
I think I always had ambitions to do it, but I remember when I left school and I was a graduate, I asked Willie, I said, how about a job now? And he's pretty much through no uncertain terms and told me that I don't know anything and I'm just a young graduate who's 22. You need to obviously go out and see the real world and go get a job underground and learn the trade, because you'll offer nothing to Wilshaw because you don't know anything. I was a bit peeved with that. I thought, I'm going to change the world here. So that didn't happen. So I got a job with a mining contractor and spent probably the best part of 12 to 15 years or so, working at various mines. And it was probably 6 years ago when I was working in that sort of role, and it was 8 and 6 roster. But my 6 days off sort of weren't my 6 days off. You were sort of governed by emails and telephone calls and office calls in the city. That I had a young family. And I said to Willie, I've got ambitions to grow Wilshaw. I don't like the FIFO life anymore, any chance of a job. And that was a big conversation, but it finally paid off. A lot of convincing to do. The hardest part was getting the job. Well, when I approached Willie, I said, this is what I want to do, and that got shut down straight away. I was told no. So I went away and came back a month later and said, well, this is what I do again. And that sort of, it chipped away. And eventually he said, will you write me a scope? You write me a job description of what you will add to this business and what you'll bring. And so I did that. And
what did you put in there?
I put that I'd like to grow, obviously expand on the reputation the company already has, but to sort of also add another side to the business, which I did. We have now done. But I had to, convince Willie that I had to go and have a job interview with Willie in the office, sit down and go through my resume and what I've done, who I've done it for. So, it wasn't just like I was given the job. It was a pretty hard gig.
Willie, your side of the story, why didn't you open your arms and say, come to the fold, son?
Well, in the early days, Noel was green out of school. He didn't have any experience. So he wouldn't bring any to my business because he didn't know what the core business was, particularly with the underground infrastructure work that I was trying to expand on. So I sent him out said you go out and get some experience, learn the ropes, and then come back and talk to me. I think it took 12 years, and I did take some convincing, because Noel was just going to come in and fluff around and do this, and so I said no. He wrote out a job description of what he would do, and I believe if I pulled that out today, he's probably achieved that and more.
What would your advice be to other parents and children who are working together?
We've got a close family relationship, not just with the Wilshaws, but with the McIntyres and with a whole group of people that all come from the Goldfields. And I suppose we socialise a lot outside of working hours, and basically that continues in the office, but we're businesslike about how we go about our work.
What about succession planning?
We're doing that now. It's a tough one. It's something I probably brought up with Willy 6 months ago. And yeah, it's obviously a business he's owned and ran for 30 years. He's got a lot of, skin in the game, and it's his business. So that's something we, as father, son, and there's other people involved, family members, etc., how we go ahead and make that transition from Willy stepping back and I guess myself stepping forward.
Basically, there is a succession plan in place, and Noel's looking after all the underground infrastructure work. I don't get involved in that anymore. It took me years to develop all the designs of our escape ways and our vent doors and all the equipment that we now have as standard product, and Noel has taken that basically over completely. Additionally, my son-in-law works in the business, and he's currently doing an MBA at University of WA, and he's also assisting me in the running of the engineering side and also the financial side, which is a big part of any business. Mm-hmm. So it's a pretty good team. I basically go to work, but I don't get involved in the 100% hands-on anymore. I give advice. And my main role there, I see it as, is what did you do 10 years ago and how did you overcome this problem? And I have Wilshaw has a large repository of engineering drawings, designs, calculations, and I spend a lot of time in the archives pulling out samples or typical things to give to the guys that work there so that we're not reinventing the wheel and we can get on with the job, help our clients at a reasonable cost.
Well, Noel and Willy Wilshaw, it's been an honour and a pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
Carl.
you. Thanks.
And if you want to hear more podcasts to inform, educate and inspire you, type WASM podcast in your search engine.